Welcome back to the course. I think last time we had a physical class, we tried to have a look at how we can be able to implement our APIs to our application using the various web technologies that we have learned, that is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Bootstrap, and of course, jQuery. So today, I want to show us how to implement the titles or the countries APIs that we have written and tested using Postman to see how they actually work in a production environment, in a development integrated environment. So I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code, or rather, I can go inside my folder and clear this. I can go inside my folder, inside drive C, XAMPP. I think I had here htdocs. I should have had here something like hospital. So we have models and controllers. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a folder for views. So we have MVC, model view controller. Then we're also going to have plugins, the things that we're going to use over and over, something like Bootstrap or even jQuery. They can go inside plugins. Then we can have another folder for images, any images you want to use on our website. We can have another folder for CSS and another folder for JavaScript. So ideally, it would look something like this. So I'm just going to open this, then we start implementing the entries one by one. So I'll launch Visual Studio Code like so. Then I will open a folder. Then I'll go to C, XAMPP, htdocs. Then I'll open the folder called hospital. So this is what I want to work on. So inside hospital, I have my models, which is titles and DB. So actually, I added models. I didn't implement cities, but I actually implemented models. But you can use the same for. Then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come inside my views over here. Then I'll create something called cities.php. This is not even cities, actually titles. Titles.php. So this is where my code is going to go. So I'll replace this with titles. Titles like that. So inside titles, we said I need to create a table. So I'll have a table, but of course, before I create a table, I need to be able to bring in my plugins, which in this case, one is going to be Bootstrap, the other one is going to be jQuery. At least I need those two plugins to be able to work on this effectively. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open a browser, then I'm going to go to getbootstrap.com. So from here, I can download the version 4 of Bootstrap, which is this. You can use version 5 if you want to, but I'll prefer version 4, so I'll download this. You should be able to download it here. Oh, so I'll say to click download, sorry. So I should be able to download it. As you can see, it's downloading here. So I'll just give it a bit of time. So once Bootstrap is able to download, I'll open the folder where it is downloaded at. Like so. So this way it has been downloaded. I'll right click and I'll say extract to Bootstrap. Then I'll pick this folder of Bootstrap. I need CSS and JavaScript, so what I can do here, I can pick this Bootstrap, copy it, go inside where my application is, go inside plugins, paste it there. Then of course I just rename it to Bootstrap, like that. I only need two files from here. This bootstrap.js, this one, I need this is the file that I need only, or maybe with the map, maybe. So those two, and probably the CSS for Bootstrap. In this particular case, it will be bootstrap.min and the map. So those are the only two files that I need to be able to run Bootstrap. So we can go ahead and link it in our application. So I can come here and the title, I'll simply say link, and I want to link CSS, and I'll go into a folder called plugins. Then inside plugins, I'll go to Bootstrap. Then inside Bootstrap, I will pick CSS. Then inside CSS, I will pick bootstrap.min.css. This one, it's a minified version. So you can also pick this development version, bootstrap.css. It will still be able to work. So I can still pick bootstrap.css. But I remember I said the minified version, this one, would work best because this one is already minified. So you can see it's only 6 lines long. This other one that's not minified, it's huge. It's about 10,000 lines long. It's actually more than 10,000 lines, as you can see, 10,332. So again, whatever is minified is they've just removed spaces, comments, and things that are necessary to make the file smaller. Otherwise, implementation is exactly the same. So once I have Bootstrap over there, then under body, I'll also put a script, and this script source, and this source will go inside plugins. Then inside plugins, I will pick Bootstrap. Then after Bootstrap, I'll pick now JavaScript. Then inside JavaScript, I'll now pick bootstrap.min or bootstrap.js, or the minified version, which is bootstrap.min.js. So again, this is one line. This is about just 6 lines. This other one is about another 10,000 lines or so. So you can see, actually, this is about 5,000. This is about 5,000 lines, so you can see it's quite big. So use the minified version if you want to deploy it. Otherwise, if for development purposes, you can just use the non-compressed version. So bootstrap.js. That should be able to load Bootstrap for us as far as our plugin is concerned. The other plugin we need, of course, we said was jQuery and probably maybe Font Awesome. So here, what I'm going to do now, this is why I said I didn't want you to come late, because once we get started, you are now disturbing the others. I think I'll leave them out. If they want to follow the video later on, maybe they could. But for now, I think they'll have to stay out. All right, so let's continue. So let's implement jQuery and Font Awesome so that now we have all the plugins we need in one place. So again, I'm going to come to browse over here, and I'll say I want jQuery. I think the most recent version is 3.6. So download jQuery over here. The most recent version is version 4. Well, I'll prefer version 3 point something. So let me pick other versions of jQuery past releases. Where are the other releases? Well, I don't think it's going to have a breaking. I don't think it will have a breaking for me. So I'll just pick this. Then I'll right-click this. Then I'll say Save As. Then I'll come to where my application is, which is C, XAMPP, htdocs, hospital. Then inside plugins, and I'll say jQuery 4. I'll just call it jQuery 4 without the 0.0.0. That's the only file that I need. So again, remember we said that when you're working with jQuery, sometimes Bootstrap requires jQuery, and that's why I think probably version 3 point something will be okay. But let me assume this is not going to interfere with me. So before you load Bootstrap, because it requires jQuery, load jQuery over here. So I'll go into plugins. Then I'll take Bootstrap, not Bootstrap, but plugins. Then I think it's jQuery 4.js is jQuery jQuery -4.js. That's all. Then probably the only other thing I need is Font Awesome for icons and all that. You can use Font Awesome. You can even use Bootstrap icons. It all depends on what you're interested in. I like Font Awesome 5, so I can come here and again download Font Awesome 5. So I'll say here,
I just replaced my entire tech stack with Postgres. Modern software engineering has basically been...
Sorry about that. So Font Awesome 4 download. Actually, it's version Font Awesome 5, not 4. Download. So Font Awesome 5, I'll click on download here. Then from here, I'll simply come and download this one free for web. So I'll put my email here. It might require me to confirm, even though I know that I already have an account. I think that's what I should have told it. So it's here. I'll just confirm my email address. So that's the token that they need me to generate. Oh, so let me just sign in anyway. Gmail.com. Why is it giving me a problem? Free for web. So never mind, continue with downloading Font Awesome free. Sorry, that's what I was supposed to click, so that it's able to download for me these fonts. So when you say download free, just go here and say continue downloading for free. So you'll download them from here. Let's just finish so that I show you how to set it up completely. It's finished downloading, so I'll open the folder. I'll right click and I'll say extract Font Awesome here. Then I'll pick this Font Awesome folder. I'll copy it. I'll go to my app. I'll go to plugins. Usually for Font Awesome, we place it on the outside here because the web font have to be on the root. The web fonts have to be on the root of your folder. I think I explained this when we were doing this last time. So I'll pick this. I'll take the web fonts, which is this. I'll copy and make them part of my root. Paste. Then the only other thing I need is the CSS, which is found here. And I'll take all. I can pick this minified one, but I can just pick this. If you can pick any, this or this. I'll pick all the unminified one, just in case you want to read the comments. Then I'll place it under CSS here, like that. Well, I can put in the plugins. I can put in the plugins over here. So that's Font Awesome. This is Font Awesome. So what I could do is come back to my application and now link Font Awesome. So link is going to be CSS. I want to go into a folder called plugins and pick all.css. That should allow me to link Font Awesome. So as you can see, I have integrated all the plugins that I need. So I just need to start developing my user interface and see how that works out. So for starters, I'll create a table with a class of table. It's going to have a class of table small and another class of table striped, so that the rows are interchanging, so it's easier to read. I'll also have table hover, so that when you hover over something on the table, then it is able to highlight for you what you're hovering. Then once I create a table, I'll create child components like t-head, like that. Then each t-head, I'll create th, and maybe I'll say I want 4 of them. So as you can see down here, this is what I am trying to type. So I'm creating a table with these classes, then I'm creating a t-head, then I'm creating th, and of course within the th, I'll now include what I want. So when I press enter, you can see Emmet automatically fills in that for me. That's how you're supposed to be typing a code moving forward. That's why I think I showed you how to actually to be able to use Emmet previously when we were looking at it. So here I can put the count, then here I can put the title, I can put date added, then I can also put added by. Then I can put 2 icons for edit and delete. So th times 2. Then that will be for edit. So I'll put non-breaking space. Another one non-breaking space over here. Like that. So this one I'll put a comment here. This is edit. Should be edit edit title. Then probably I'll have another one here. Another comment here that says delete title. I'm just putting this to show us what the columns mean. So this will be delete title. So after that, after the t head, we can put the t body, and this is where our content is going to go. Then we are done. Then I remember here at the bottom, we said we need to put a button that allows us to be able to create a new title. So I'll come here and say, have a button with a class of btn, small, btn, success. These are just Bootstrap classes to be able to apply Bootstrap styles. I'll give it an ID of add new title. Then I'll put some text to it that says add new title. So this is how you use Emmet, and as you can see, this is exactly what this statement is going to output for me. So when I press enter, you can see automatically it does that. And of course, when I go back to my user interface, you probably find that it has already updated that information. So I already have my my page in such a way that there's already a table with some heading but no data. And of course, moving forward, I have a button at the bottom, which when I click, I should be able to launch a model for typing in the title so that I can be able to create a new title. So I'll just launch. So I'll launch a browser window over here. I'll put them side by side. So I'll put this on the extreme side here, and I'll put my code window over here. Then I'll collapse this portion so that I am only viewing the code. So as I'm typing my code, we're also going to see the output from here. So I'll put here localhost, and I'll put here hospital, and I'll put here views. Then I'll go to this is titles.php, views rather, views, then titles.php. That should bring me to this page. You can see the styles have not been applied. I don't know why, but we need to find out that we have not applied Bootstrap styles over here. So let's find out what the issue is. So I think I know where the issue is. If I look at where my file is inside views, and I am referring to folders that are directly not inside views. So what I needed to do was to go back one level into plugins, go back one level into plugins again, go back one level into plugins, and another level into plugins. Then I'll try again. And as you can see, my styles have applied. So what I could have done inside body here, I could have just created a container fluid. So I'll put a dot for container fluid, dot container fluid, so that it creates a div with container fluid like that. So it creates a div with container fluid so that these things are pushed on the inside. So I'll take everything here and put it inside my container fluid like that. So probably this one should have gone a little bit on the outside. Yep. So when I refresh this one, you can see now it's pushed a little bit on the inside. So I know for a fact that Bootstrap is working. I don't know if Font Awesome is working. So what I would have done is to come here and maybe create a new line here so that you're able to see the entire code. So what I can do here is to put an icon. So icon with a class of Font Awesome solid, Font Awesome plus, Font Awesome large, Font Awesome fixed width, something like that. That should create an icon with a plus here. So when I refresh this, I'm seeing a plus, and that is actually good. So instead of large, I can put medium, which would be the default, sorry, Font Awesome medium, which with the default, so the plus is not bigger than the entire text, like that. That makes a lot of sense. So now I know for sure that Font Awesome is working, and I also know that Bootstrap is working. What I could do here, I could simply say here, for this, put a margin bottom of 3, just to create some space between the header and this title of the page here. So refresh that. It's margin div class here, margin bottom. Okay, maybe I put it on the table here. Then I refresh it. That's strange. That's strange. That should have worked. All right. Margin bottom or margin top. Oh, for whatever should be margin top. Yeah. So you can see I have left some space up there. So at least it's off the page a bit. So at least I have a way of being able to now add a title. So when I click on this, we said we need to add a model, which will now pop us for us and allow us to be able to now create a new title. So let's add that model. Remember last time I said I don't need to master the syntax for creating a model. So what I'm going to do here is simply say create a model for title details. This will be used to create a title, and it can also be used for modifying existing titles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the browser here. I'll simply say Bootstrap for model. Then I just click on this. It should give me the model over here. Anything you can actually use this to launch the model, but this is how a model looks like. So I just copy the structure of the model. I'll come and paste it inside here. I'll come back to my page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the model a name. So sometimes I like putting these things in such a way that they are properly indented. So you're seeing where it's starting and where it's ending. The model header is supposed to end there, and the model class is there, and the model footer is actually there. So I'm able to see the model dialog. I can make it big or small. By default, it's medium. I have the content. The content has a header, has a body, and has a footer. The header has this heading which says model title, and it has a close button. Then, of course, now we can simply say here title details. So that's where we're going to enter the title details with a close button. Then, of course, buttons here. I'm going to have button. I can interchange these buttons so that I have a save first, then I have close later on. So save, then close. Then for save, I'll give it success and also make the button smaller. This one, I'm going to give it outline danger so that it's red, outline red, but when you hover on it, it becomes a permanent red. Then I'll also make it smaller. Of course, I can put Font Awesome icons on it if I want to. So I can have here and say, put an icon. So let me just put it down here so that you're able to see everything. So here I can put an icon with a class of Font Awesome Solid, Font Awesome Save, Font Awesome Medium, Font Awesome Fixed Width. So that should output a save button. And if I want a close button over here, I'll just come here. I want to put an X next to this button. so that now I use this an X to mean that it signifies close. I could just copy this and paste it here. So instead of save, I'll say times, like that. So for the body of the model, I'll need to have a place where, or maybe I can show you how to show the model even without changing the content. So what I'm going to do is I will come to my folder structure here. I'll come to JavaScript over here, and I'll create a new file, and I will call it titles.js. So this title.js is going to contain all the JavaScript code needed for running this title. So remember, I don't want to mix HTML and JavaScript. So you can see I'm very technically including styles separately using CSS, and I'm also including JavaScript files separately using script tag. So whatever I have here is purely HTML. I'm not trying to mix and match everything, which is a very good thing. So now the only other thing I need to do is to come to this title, and of course I have linked up jQuery and I've linked up Bootstrap. So the only thing I need to link up is now the JavaScript file that I've created, which is this. So this one is going to go into JS, then look for a file called titles.js. Now we need to test if it is working. So I'm going to put jQuery, get the document. When it is ready, run the following anonymous function. So that's how you run jQuery. So $, I said, means jQuery. Listen to when the document is ready, then run the following callback function. This is the function. So this closes the ready part. So here I could simply say alert, maybe jQuery is running, just to test if it is actually running. So I'll refresh this page, and it does not do anything. So it means that something has not been attached properly. I can right click and come to inspect over here and check for console. I'm saying bootstrap.js is not there, and titles.js is also not loaded. So bootstrap.js and title.js have not been loaded properly. So let's fix that. So Bootstrap, I say you go to plugins, then you go to Bootstrap, then JS. No, there's no, yeah, okay. So let's just check that. We said go inside plugins, which is from views, jump up one level, go into plugin, then go into Bootstrap. This is Bootstrap. Then inside Bootstrap, look for JS. Then inside JS, you look for, this is not boot, I missed an R here, it's bootstrap.js, as you can see. So now that is fixed. Then the other one says, go up one level into a folder called JS, which is here. Then this is title, not titles. So I misspelled this. It should have been title. So I can right click this and rename it and add the S, titles, as that. So when I refresh this, now you can see jQuery is running. So it means now somebody says it requires at least version 1.9, but less than version 4. So you can see if I was going to use version 4, I have a problem because it tells me that Bootstrap requires version 1.9 up to version 3 point something. So I might need to go back and download or downgrade my version of jQuery that I am using. So come again, let's say jQuery 3.x download. So I'll come to jQuery here. So versions of jQuery that are older, so I'll come to where? Download. I don't want version 4, I want a lower version. So I'll pick version 3x, 3.7. I'll get the uncompressed version here. So then why is it not giving me the file, the whole why isn't it giving me the this is a CDN. I wanted the full download. So this is version 3.7 uncompressed. Oh, why is it giving me because that's what I need. I need 3.7.1. Let me just take this. Actually, I have it on my file. I'm just taking my time to look for it so that when you want to use it, you don't have a challenge. So jQuery 3.7.1. I think it should be here. I don't know why it's giving me a hard time today. So this is jQuery 3.6. This is the URL that you can follow to get it. So I'll just right click on this, save as. Then we are hospital plugins. So instead of jQuery 4, I'll simply say jQuery 3.6.0. Let me just use 3.6. That's jQuery 3.6. If I scroll downwards, it looks like it has everything, which is fine. So here, instead of jQuery 4, I'll say 3.6. So 3.6.js, I'll close that and also close that. Then I'll come to my file here and I'll run it. And now you can see, well, uncaught error, jQuery is not defined. Well, it means that I have not linked the file properly. So JS, so that should be inside plugins. Then inside plugins, I have jQuery 3.6.jQuery3.6.js. jQuery 3.6. Yeah, that looks okay. So does it mean that there's a file that reference error jQuery is not defined? So it means that this file jQuery 3.6. Well, it's giving me an issue. So I'll just pick one that I have on my system, because I think I've downloaded it quite a number of times. I think I have one here, JavaScript jQuery 3.6.1. Let me just copy this and put it where our application is so we don't have issues. It's just a file that you download on the internet anyway. Let's not belabor too much on it. This should be hospital under plugins. I'll put it here. So it is hyphen 3.6.1. So I'll just copy that. That one I know is working. So I'll come and place it here. So .js. Then I'll open my browser window again. I'll press Ctrl F5. jQuery is running, and console does not have any error. So I think 3.61 is fine. So at least I know this one is working fine because it's the one that I use most of the time. So at least we know that our plugins are all working. So let's now go ahead and implement. When I click on this button, I want to be able to show the model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this model. I just went because I wanted to show you how to launch the model. So the thing is, I'm going to give this model an ID. So I'm going to come and give it an ID and say, this is title, details, model, like that. So this is the model. Then this button, this add new title, is also a button that when I click, I want to show up this model. So I'll come here and I'll simply remove this because I've confirmed jQuery is running and everything is fine. There are no errors on my console. So I'll declare two variables and I'll say one is a constant for add new title button. Then remember we said we can use CSS selectors. Then I'll give it an ID of whatever we want to target, which is that. And I'll place it inside here. Then I'll separate them with a comma, and I'll say the other one is title, details, model. is equals to, I'll also select by ID, and I'll pick the ID of the model like that. Then I'll add an event listener to this, and when it is clicked, I'll show this model. So I'll say add event listener to add new title. So I'll pick that button, then I'll say when you click on it, you can run the following function. Now I can either use a regular function or I can use a fat arrow. So I'll use fat arrow or ES6 like that. So that's ES6. Instead of writing function, I'll simply replace the word function with this fat arrow. So that is simply just like writing function like this, as you can be able to see. Then I'll simply say take this model and then launch model, then you show it like that. Now that should allow me to show it. So when I refresh this and I click this, you can see I have the model showing without anything else. The only thing I have is save button and close button. As I said, I put an outline of save, but really I've not added anything of the model except the title, there's the close button, and of course the model goes here, and of course the save buttons down there. So I can come back and now replace this body part, which is what is actually showing inside here. And now there are two things you're going to add here. First of all, we're going to add an input that is of type hidden. I'm going to give it an ID of title ID. Then the name will be title ID. I like the habit of using name and title as the same thing, but then you're going to give it a value of 0 by default, so that if a user has not provided any value, it means that you're creating a new one. So this hidden is never going to show up anywhere. So it's for our own use, for knowing whether we're adding a new item or we are deleting an existing one. Then, of course, I'm going to have a form group here. Then I'll create a label and say title name. Then here I'll simply say title name. Then I'll have an input of type text, which is the default. I'll give it an ID of title name. Then I'll give it a class of form control small. Then I'll give it a name of title name, just like that. So I only have one field, which is that if I had multiple fields, I'll just copy that and repeat them down here. So since I only have one field, I'll stop it at that. So you can add as many fields as possible. So I'll put here add other fields as necessary. Add other fields as necessary, so you can add them as much as possible. So I'll refresh this. When I click on this, now you can see I have title name. Then that's basically it. Now, because I also want to display some errors at the top here, just to show you that whether everything is okay, whether it's processing or things like that, I'll probably put another div here, and I'll say notifications. So there's a div here. By default, it has nothing. So even if I refreshed and say add new, it's never going to appear. So, but it's going to be there for purposes of us displaying the progress, if there are any errors, if it was successful, or things like that. So again, that is something very important for you to have either on your page or in the models or something of the sort. So now let's go ahead and now implement this save, so that now we are able to see how we can actually connect this with our database. So I'll come back to my title over here, then I'll put a comment and say save title. So to save title, I'll need some more variables. I'll say title ID field, that will pick title ID. I'll have title name field, title name field here. I'll put title name. Then I have the save button. So save title button. I don't know if I gave it any ID. I can come back and confirm. For the save, I didn't give it an ID, so I need to give it an ID of say save title, like that. Then I'll just pick that ID and paste it inside here. Then I say notifications, save notifications. So here I'll have this notification. I gave it an ID. I remember I gave it an ID of notifications. Then I think that's basically it. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen to when somebody clicks on this save button. So I'll take this save button and I'll say when somebody clicks on it, then run the following function. You can either write it like this or use the fat arrow that I used up here. Either will still be able to work. They mean more or less the same thing. Okay, the only thing is that this will not accept this method. It's not going to give me access to this method, which is sometimes is very useful, especially when I'm trying to reference to an object itself. That's usually just the downside. So first of all, what I will do is I will validate the data. So validate empty fields. Empty fields. And before I even validate the empty fields, I have two values. I have the title ID and the title name. So usually what I would do is I would normally go into my model and check how I have added those elements. So probably I can come up here. I can come into my models here. I come into my title, actually not model, but controllers. I come title operations. I see, so you have title ID and title name. Title ID and title name. So that's what I have given them, title ID and title name. So I'll come here and I'll say title ID is equals to, and this is supposed to be a constant. You can use let or var. Then I'll pick this title ID dot value. Then I have title name here, which is going to be whatever is inside this field dot value. And of course, I can remove any spaces that it has by saying, sorry, trim. Trim will remove any spaces that are there. Then once I assign them the values, I'll simply check if title name is blank. So what I could then do here is just declare a variable for holding errors. So I'll simply say here, let errors is equals to blank, like that. That means that I have a variable here. By default, it is blank. But if there are any errors, then I will update it. That's why I'm using let. Const will not allow you to do that. So what I'm going to say here, errors will be, please provide title name. Otherwise, then I'll just go ahead and save. So here what I could do is I can output the error at the top here so that the user is able to see it. So I'll simply say errors will be errors, and I'll put a div of class alert info, something like that. Then once I close the alert, I'll put my errors. Sorry, I'll output the errors that were there. Then I will close the div. So what I'm trying to do is basically just to give it in such a way that it is not plain, it's not some plain text. So I just want to give some sort of a background, like a bluish background or something of that sort, which you can be able to easily tell that this is actually something that requires my action. I can even go ahead and put an icon, a font awesome icon right next to, just to show that this is general information, this is an error or something of the sort. Of course, you can always write functions for doing that. But I'm assuming that's going to be fine. That should work. Alert and alert info should be able to give me some blue background text because these are actually font awesome, not font awesome, but Bootstrap classes. Right, so that should do. Then, of course, I'm going to say take these notifications and then change its HTML to errors. Okay. Otherwise, we can try that out first of all and see if it works out. So refresh this, click this, save. Well, nothing seems to be working. So let's come to inspect, check if we have any errors on the console. Properties of undefined reading trim. So title name.undefined. So title name, you can see I misspelled this one. This should be title name, like that. Then refresh this, try again, click. Now it's working. Please provide title name. Well, this one should have been just that. I didn't need to add the plus. So again, refresh, add title, save. So you can see now it is telling me, please provide title name. If I wanted, I could have put an icon next here. So what I would have done here is I'll simply put an icon with a class of font awesome solid, font awesome, exclamation or info, font awesome, large, font awesome, fixed width. Then I close that and I close that. Then I close my icon. Then I put some space and I refresh this. I try, I save. Well, you can see it has an I, so it means I didn't close the I. That's why everything else is enclosed there. So again, I'll just refresh this, add that, click on save. Now you can see it's actually nice. So I can put info circle. Then I can simply make it font awesome medium. I can see large is too big, so medium. Again, you're just going to play with the text until you get it right. So something like that, that's better. So maybe try large for this. Probably maybe large for this would be nicer. Well, that is something of this. So you get the idea on how we can actually implement this. Of course, every time you start typing what the name is, then this should go away because it's not going to be blank. So you can go ahead and prepare that. So I'll simply take this title name field, and add an event listener to it. Sorry, add an event listener to it on. Sorry, this is going to be on input. As you type on it as an input field, then I'll simply use a fat arrow, and I'll simply take this notification and convert the HTML to blank. So as I'm typing, this should be able to remove. This should be able to remove. This should be able to remove the content as I type. So save that. Then as I start to type, you can see it goes away. So nice. Ideally, that's how you are supposed to implement your UI. Now, if there are no errors and I click on save, it's supposed to do the processing, then simply tell me it's saving. So what I'm going to do here is I'll simply say here, let notifications is equals to, I'll put a div with a class of alert. Then it's going to be alert info, like that. Then I'll put a font awesome icon with a class of font awesome solid, font awesome hourglass. I don't know if the hourglass has a space. Font awesome large and font awesome fixed width. So that should allow me to be able to have that. I'll close the font awesome icon and I'll say processing. Please wait. Then of course I'll close the div. So something like that. So processing, please wait. So as I click, when I click and there is when and everything has been filled in, that's the message that's going to show up. So I'll take my save notifications, and on this HTML, I will apply my notification. this text over here. So it will tell me processing, please wait. Then from there, now I can go ahead and call my API endpoint and give it the details for purposes of saving. So I'll simply say jQuery execute a post method. I said the post method has three parameters. The first parameter is the URL. So go upwards into a folder called controllers. Then from controllers, pick something called what do we call it? Title operations.php. So this is going to be title operations.php. That's the first parameter. The second parameter will be the data that we're passing over, which in this particular case on title operations, we have save title, title ID, and title name. So I'll say save title, title ID, and title name. So save title, that's going to be true. Title ID is going to be this variable up here. So you can type title ID like that, then you put title ID. Since all of them, since they are the same in terms of spelling, even if I omitted this, JavaScript will automatically fill in it for me. That's why I like using the same name for variables and whatever I am passing over to my server. So you can see this title name is exactly the same as this title name variable over here. So I'll simply come and say title name like that. Then the third parameter will be the callback function with the data that comes back from the processing, something like that. So with this data, the only thing I need now to do is to just check if the data is actually a JSON object. Then of course, now I can be able to output as appropriate. So if everything went well, it will be able to save and it's going to give me back the response, which I can be able to output. So I need to write a function here that tells me, well, this is a function that checks if the data that is being returned is a JSON object. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get a new file and call it functions.js. So all the functions that I'm going to write, the helper function within my library, I'm going to put them here. And because I've already written it before a million times, I think I'll not bother so much with trying to recreate it. So what I'm basically going to do, I'll come here. What is this? I think I have on Guardian here functions. Do I have functions? Yes. I can open this with Visual Studio Code. Then I'll simply say is JSON. So this is the function that I need. I'll copy this and I'll close this and I'll just put it inside here. That's the function that I need. So it just checks if it's a JSON object. If the JSON object returns true, if it's not, it returns false, and that's basically it. So I didn't want to type it a million times because I've already done that 1,000 times. So what I'm going to do is just check here if is JSON. The data that came back, it means that there was no error. So then I'll output. So I'll simply say notification equals. So if it is JSON, the first thing I need to do is, of course, I'll simply say data equals JSON. I want to pass it over as JSON so that now it's this one only checks if the format is JSON. This one now converts it into an actual JSON object, where now I can check if data.status is equals to success. So it means that it was successful in terms of saving. Then I'll simply say notification is equals to div class equals alert success, because I want it to be green. I can put small alert. Then from there, I can put a font awesome icon with a tick. So I'll simply say icon with a class. Whether you can put it on a new line, nothing stops you from doing that. Icon class will be equal to font awesome solid, font awesome check with a circle. font awesome, large, font awesome, fixed width, something like that. Then I'll close the icon and I'll simply say title was saved successfully. Then I'll close the div like that. So what that would mean is that, well, I can even put this icon down here so that you're able to see where each and everything goes. So I have the icon, I have closed the icon, then I've output the text here. So then I closed the div which is here. So I can actually put them like that so you're able to see where everything is falling. It won't matter because this this template string allows me to type anything inside the template, whether there are spaces, the breaking lines, and so on and so on. It is actually good for that. So once I'm done with that, I could simply pick my notification, which is here, and I'll simply say HTML will be equal to notification, whatever I've generated here. Then probably the only other thing I can do is to empty this particular field, so that now you can enter a new one. So I'll simply say title name, and I can write a function because I might want to use it. So function clear title fields like that. So I'll simply say title name field dot val is blank and title id field dot val is 0, which means that even if you're editing, it sets it up in a way that you can now be able to add a new entry. Then I simply call this function up here. I simply call this function up here. Sorry. Here. Can I reduce the, yeah, maybe let me reduce it slightly like that so that I'm able to have more real estate for being able to type the content. So that should clear it and of course give me notifications. And ideally, if everything was to go according to plan, of course, if something else went wrong, then it means this if will not be there, and I'll simply output this notification as something else. I'll simply say alert. Instead of success, I'll simply say danger. And instead of check circle, I'll simply put times circle, and I'll simply say sorry, an error occurred. Then I'll output that error. In this particular case, it will be the data that came back from our execution, whatever it's going to be. If it's not going to be a JSON object, then it means it failed, and we need to tell the user why it failed, occurred, like that. Then that way we wouldn't need to clear anything. We just display the error, and we are good to go. So I will refresh this page over here. I'll come add a new title, click on save, tells me to provide the name. I'll simply come to, let me just open my database, SQL log. Do I have it open? Not yet. So let me open my SQL log. And I'll come to hospital. I'll come to titles. And I don't have ambassador here, so let me say ambassador. So I'll simply say AMB, save. It is processing, but it got an error. It's telling me, and reference function is JSON. Actually, it has saved, and I can prove that. The only thing is that I did not include functions in these titles. So I forgot to include functions here. So that's why the file is not being found. So I need to come here and put source here and go into app, go into JavaScript, then load functions.js so that all those functions are able to be put here. But of course, if I go to my database, I should be able to see ambassador added. So you can see ambassador was added. We can add another titles. What title are we missing? Also, let's put something like teacher, TR. So again, I'll refresh this. I'll press F5 to make sure it refreshes, add a new title, and simply say teacher. And I save. And as you can see, it tells me it was saved successfully. So when I come back to the application and I refresh this window, refresh should be here. Then you see I have teacher and it has been saved successfully. So at least we know that it is now able to save. And as you can see, we're actually doing the saving from now our page or our user interface, which is actually a very nice thing because now we have a way of being able to add data or to invoke our API and have it do the things that we want it to do. The next thing we need to do is to probably return this data into this table. Then now we can be able to display it first of all. Then we can go ahead and edit and finally delete, so that the CRUD operation as far as title is concerned has also been implemented in the user interface. So let's do that. Usually I like using a function for that because functions are reusable and they make your work very, very easy in terms of code reusability. So I want to create a function that will take this table. So I'll come back to this table. Then I'll give this table an ID and I'll call it titles table. Now you can see why IDs are very important. Whenever you're going to target them with JavaScript or jQuery, it makes it very, very easy to target them by IDs because you're going to be targeting a very specific element on your page. So here, I want to write a function here. I'll simply say return existing titles as a table, something of that sort. So I'll put a constant here and I'll say titles table is equals to got element by ID titles table. So then I can write here a function. I say get titles as table. It does not require any parameter, so I'm just going to execute jQuery. I'm going to tell it exactly what to do. Then it transmits the data. Then I output it on the table. As simple as that. So here I'll simply say jQuery get JSON. Remember previously I was using jQuery.post to save the data. To save the data, I use post. Now I'm using get JSON, which means it's going to get the data as JSON and convert it to JSON directly. I don't need to do this conversion that I did over here. Why this one has to be done is because post does not return back JSON objects, so that's why I need to perform this check. Then I'll simply give it the 4 parameters it requires. So I can simply go into controllers. Then I go into title operations.php. Then I'll give it the payload that I need. So for title operations, say get titles, it's just get titles, 1 parameter. I don't need jQuery, I can close it. I don't need functions, I can close it so that I'm only left with what I need. So then that is set to true. Now you can also check if this was successful, then you use the done method. So this is one of the best way of doing it. So get JSON, you can pass 2 parameters, then use the done method. And on the done method, just get the data that was returned and use a callback function, as simple as that. Or you can put a comma here and then call the data directly as a function. So this is also allowed. This is also allowed, but I like doing it this way so that when it fails, I can also record it failed. Then I can tell the user why it actually failed. This particular case will not tell the user why it failed, so you have to go back to the console to check why it failed. So that's why I don't prefer this method, even though it's available for you to use if you need to. So I'll use this second method. So then when it fails also, I can't be able to access that method. Then I can simply get the data. When it fails, I'll get first of all the response. After the response, I'll get the status. Then I'll also get the error. So it's going to give me three things when it fails. It's going to give me the actual response, the text that came back from the server. It's going to give me the status. Was it a 404 or a 201 or whatever it is? Then it's going to describe for me the actual error that occurred. So usually I like writing it that way so that now if it is successful, I'll put the results. If it failed, I also tell you why it actually failed. So that way you can just read it and debug it very, very directly without really engaging a lot of stuff. So this is JavaScript, but this is JavaScript, not jQuery, because jQuery, what it does is it returns a promise. So when it is done, that's one status of the promise. When it fails, that's also another status. So I'm just listening to those two statuses to see what actually transpired for that particular uh, 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 promise that was returned by jQuery. So when it is successful, I'll simply I'll declare a variable here called results, and I'll assign it to blank. Then I'll loop through each object here. So I'll say data dot for each, because it's already an object. Then I will get here the title. Then for each title, I'll simply, now as an object, I might be able to respond. I might be able to extract its fields. So I'll simply say results plus equals. So I'm not changing the value of the results. So I'll create a new table row. Then I'll give it a data ID of title ID. So title dot title ID. So because I want each and every one of them to be unique, then I'll close the table row. Then I'll now create the table divisions. So I have table division. The first division I have over here is going to be the number. So number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So usually when you're returning a for each, you can also return the index. Okay, so when you're returning a for each, you return an object with an index. So I'm just putting an index there so that it helps me in being able to count which item is there. So here I'll say I plus 1, because indexing starts at 0. So it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to show you what it looks like once we're done. So I cannot put that, and I close that. Then the next is I'll put the title name itself. So I'll have here TD. Then here I'll put title dot title name, and I hope we called it title name from the database. It's actually title name, and you can see I was using lowercase because I didn't want issues when I'm referring to the elements over here. That's why I used all lowercase to make my work easier. This is going to be TD, not title. Then after that we have date added. So I'll copy that. I'll simply say date added, and then we have the person who added it, which is added by name. So if you run that query, you'll realize we added the person who added this particular entry, and of course now we can add the edit and delete icon. So here I'll put a TD, but then here I'll put an anchor element that does not point anywhere but has a class of edit. Then I'll put a font awesome icon with font awesome solid, font awesome edit, font awesome small, font awesome fixed width. Then I'll close the icon like that. So that will be the edit. Then I'll go ahead and now put the delete. So I'll copy that and I'll put delete. So the only difference is going to be the class. This is going to be delete. And of course, this is going to be trash or trash alternative. It'll depend on what icon you want to put there. So once I'm done with all this, then I can go ahead and close my table row. So it will repeat that process, creating a table row every other time, like that. So it's going to repeat that process for each of the elements that is going to be returned. So it's going to just create table row and store them with results. So once I'm done with this loop over here, what I'll do is I will output the data onto now the table here. So I'll take this table over here. and I'll say find its table body, then change the HTML of that table body, the HTML of that table body into the results that we have generated, like that. So these results, whatever it's going to have, all of it is going to be output as the T-body for our HTML. So the T-body here has nothing, so I'll just generate this and output it inside there. Now, if it fails, I can go ahead and say output the error on this, not save notification, but I can have another notification up here for processing purposes, that some people are able to see what is actually going on. So what I can do is I can come to my titles here, then on top of this table, I can put another class. I'll simply say title notifications. So the message is going to appear there, title notifications. So I can come here, I'll declare title notifications. That's not saved. I'll come here, title notifications. Notifications like that. Then this title notifications, when it's processing, I'll simply say const notification. Actually, it should be let notification equals div class equals alert info. Then I can put an icon with a class of font awesome solid, font awesome hourglass. Is hourglass one word, or is it search? So let's search hourglass. I don't know if it is one word, hourglass. You can make use of this, by the way. The only thing I'm using version 5, which is what I downloaded. So you make sure you also use the appropriate one. And it's actually hourglass. There's hourglass F if you would like that. So there's hourglass. So you can use any of these. So let me use just hourglass. So font awesome hourglass, font awesome large, font awesome fixed width. Then I'll close that class. I'll close the icon, and I close the div. Of course, for the div, I still need it for other things, so I'll just push this one down a bit so that you're able to see the div. You can type it on one line. I'm only writing it in such a way that you're able to see where each and every element started and where it's ending. So here, after the icon, I can simply say fetching titles. Please wait. So the user needs to know what's going on. So something like that. Then, of course, I will output this one inside these data notifications. This will be notification. So when it is getting, it will tell me up there, it is fetching, please wait. So if it's a process that's going to take long, at least the user knows that it is doing something. Now, once it has been done, then I'll simply take that and I'll put the HTML to be blank. So once I've finished processing, I'll remove that message, so the processing has already been done, so nothing else to do. But if it failed, then what I would do is if it fails, what I would do is I would take the response object and extract the error. So I'll simply say notification. I can just take this entire notification here, including that, without the let. Then I'll simply say so this notification will be equal to that. So instead of hourglass, I'll simply say it's not exclamation even, it is actually times circle, and it's going to be danger, which means it's going to be red in color, means something not nice has happened. time circle. Then of course that's the icon, so this is the message. For the message, I'll simply say sorry, an error occurred. Then I will output the error. So this error is going to be this response object. Then I'll get the response text for it, like that. Yeah, I think that's how it's written, response text. So the response that I'm going to get the response text. Exactly what has come from the server is what I'm going to display to the end user so that they can be able to troubleshoot, or they can advise the developer on exactly why the application has misbehaved. So if it fails, then this portion here is going to execute. It's just going to take notification. It will get a div with red and put a times icon next to it. Then it's going to say sorry, an error occurred. Then it's going to take the response that came back from the server with the text that is on that particular response and output that to the end user. So if everything was to work well, then this portion here should allow me to be able to extract or to get titles as table. And because I've written this as a function, and that was deliberate, I can now invoke it so many times. Number one, I can invoke it when the page is loading. So I can simply come here and say, I can come here and say, first things first, load existing titles. So I will call that function. It will load the existing titles. Once I finish saving and I do the clearing, I can also say refresh titles list. So the only other thing I'm doing is again calling the function. So you can see, having written it as a function, it means I can call it several times. When I edit, when I delete, when I add a new one, when I load the page, I simply call that particular method and it will do exactly what it's supposed to do. It will go to the database, get me the titles, fetch the data. Once the data comes, look through it, create them as table rows, find the tables, titles table, get the T-body, output the rows over there, and of course, clear the error. If there's any error, clear the notification rather. If there's any error, it will also come and display for me the error. So if there is no issue, then this portion of code should be able to work efficiently. Let's see if it actually works. So I'm going to come back to my UI over here and I'm going to press Ctrl F5, and if everything is fine, then everything works. So you can see that notifications has not been defined, so it's telling me I cannot access that notifications before its declaration. So what I'll need to do is I will take this variables. This is where hoisting becomes a problem. Then I will define them up here before anything else, like that. I can define them up here. Then that should be able to take care of that hoisting problem for us. So you can see it has actually done it very well. So I have ambassador, Mr., Mrs., and all that, and I have the title. So it means that in my query, I don't have date added and added by. And of course, even the icon I'm trying to add for Sacco is not there. So let's come and say info here so that we can fix that one by one. So we have info hyphen Sacco. So it's for info hyphen Sacco. Let me just get that. You can pick it, then you can check for info first for info Sacco. First for info Sacco. All right, so what's the issue? Class. That looks okay. Oh, I forgot. Okay, this is even okay. Oh, sorry. I'm looking at something else. That's not what I'm supposed to look at. That's not what I'm supposed to look at. I'm supposed to look at here. So this one I missed. If you use double, use double. If you use single, use single. So decide that. So I think the icons should be okay. Now the icons are okay. So I just need to deal with undefined here and undefined here. So I can come to network here, then I can just refresh this page, and then I can get these title operations, and I can get the preview and check what data is being returned. So you can see here, I don't have date added, and I have added by name, added by name. You can see here I said added by name. So it means I misspelled it. It should have been added by name. So the last one should have appeared. So I just need to go back to my query and simply come to get titles over here. Then added by name should be added, remove one. Then also I need to go ahead and pick the date added. So for the title, I can have date added like that. So that should be able to fix them. So you can see when you separate these concerns, they become very, very easy to debug. So that is successful. If I was just to refresh this, and you see I don't need to fix anything, well, it tells me fetching. It means that there was an error that has occurred probably, and I should have displayed that error. I don't know why it's not showing. So this is JavaScript error, and probably, let me see, no, console is telling me response text is not a function. This is actually a property. This is actually a property, not a function. Response text is a property, not a function. So I'll refresh this. Sorry, refresh this. You can see it tells me date added is ambiguous. So this is the kind of error I was telling you. So whenever I have an error, you can see now it actually tells me the exact error that has come from the application. It's telling me the date added column is ambiguous, which means date added is appearing on both tables. So I just need to add here the title dot date added, run it back, so that it's no longer ambiguous. It knows that it's coming from the titles table, not the users table. Then, of course, I refresh this and everything is fixed. And as you can see, now I have the date that it was added, the person wanted it, then I have edit and delete buttons all together. Okay? So that's how, so we can create a new one. And if once we create a new one, let's say we have mother called a title called mother. When I save, automatically it should populate on this list if everything worked fine. So save that, and as you can see, mother has actually updated up here. If I had father, save, father has also updated. That's why I was trying to show you how you can actually use a function. Then that function, once we write it, we can call it as many times as possible, and it will just continually do that thing over and over again. So now let's look at how we can actually be able to edit the content that you have on this page. So to edit the content that you have on this page, we'll use something called event delegation, which is actually how jQuery delegates events into the future. Event delegation essentially means that by the time this page is loading, whatever you're trying to access will be non-existent. So as you can see, by the time this page is ready, if I come to titles here, these titles will be blank. This body here will be blank. There'll be nothing inside here. But I want to listen to this edit button, and it does not exist. So jQuery allows me to be able to listen into the future when something has been added. Then I can delegate that particular event and see how this works out. So this is what is going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and say I will minimize this so that the code is a bit smaller. I can also minimize this so that the code is smaller. Then here I will come and say I want to take this table called titles table, this one, titles table. So edit existing title. So I'm going to take that table, then I'm going to listen to when there's a click, and the click will be on something that has a class of edit. And why is that? Because when you're getting this title, you saw we added something with a class of edit. So we added a an icon there with the class of edit. So it means it's going to happen into the future. Once that class has been added, jQuery will just listen and will check, is there anything that was added after the DOM had been created that has a class of edit as far as this table is concerned? When it finds it, then it's now able to execute this function over here. Now, here I will not be able to use a fat arrow because it will not allow me to access the this method as far as this component is concerned, which is something that I actually need, because from this, whatever is being clicked, I need to just traverse upwards and get the data ID, which now becomes the thing that I can be able to use to get the details of the title and upload them into the user interface for purposes of editing. That's why that's useful. So simply say here, a constant of title ID will be get the object that was clicked, then get its closest TR. So just traverse whatever was clicked, traverse upward until you reach TR. Once you reach TR, get the data ID. Like that. Well, first of all, we can log to see if it's doing the correct thing. Title ID. So just going to output the title ID just to see if it is actually doing the correct thing. So I'll inspect this. I'll come to my console over here. Then I'll refresh this. Then I'll click on this. So that tells me it's 9, 2, 12, 3, 6, and so on and so on. So the IDs are actually being extracted, so that works perfectly. So the only thing we need to do is to get the details of that particular title, then output them on the model. So what I'm going to do is get JSON. So here I'm going to say get details of the selected title, like that. So here I'm going to say get JSON. My endpoint will be controllers title operations.php. Then the object that I'm sending over will be, I didn't get title details, so I need to put it here. So I can write it here. If is set get title details, then of course I'll need the title ID will be get title ID. Then I'll simply echo title. Then I'll call the method for getting title details. So I didn't use title details here. No, that was an outside for me function. Get title details. I need a title ID here. So you can see once you know how to write it, it's not a problem to get title ID. Then here I'll just implement SQL statement, and I'll say call get title details. Well, I didn't even write that. That was a mistake. So create procedure sp get title details. So I need title ID, which is an integer, and I'll remove these other comments. I don't need them, like that. So here I'll simply say select all fields from titles where the title ID is equivalent to the title ID that I had given, and I put a semicolon and I execute it. That should work fine. Then I simply execute this. That's what I give back to my procedure. Then with the title ID here, and I enclose these ones inside curly braces to mean that it's a variable. Then I'll simply tell it this return, then I'll get the current object, I'll say get JSON, and I'll pass the SQL statement. That should be able to fix that. It should be able to go get the data, give them back to me, and I propagate them backwards as I am moving along. So the only thing I need to put here was this get title details. This is the method that I needed to invoke for the instantiated object, which is operations here, like that. So once that is done, I'll simply need this over here. I'll set that to true, then I'll pass the title ID. And if everything comes back, I'll pick that data and execute it. Otherwise, when it fails, I'll also need to tell you that I got a response, I got a status, and I got an error. So between those three things, you will decide what you want to do with them. So when it's successful, I'll simply say, because getJSON is going to return an array of objects, I'll simply say data is equals to data, or title rather. Title is equals to data, the first element, because it's an array of elements. So even though it only has one element, I need to specify the index. Then of course, moving forward, I need to pick the fields to be populated, then I show the model. So I'll simply say title ID field, title ID field dot val would be title dot title ID. Then title name field dot val will be title dot title name. Then of course we show the model, and the model here is title details model. That's why I'm using them as variables to make it very easier to access them. Title the model dot model, then I simply say show. So if everything is fine, it will show the model. So this one here should be a constant, like that, so that we avoid that. Otherwise, if it fails, then I'll just pick this title notification and I'll output this. It's the same thing. So, well, up to what point did I pick? I should have picked up from notifications. There. That's what I should have picked. So if everything is fine, I'll simply say, sorry, an error occurred, then I'll give you the error that occurred so that you can be able to act on it. And it's as simple as that. I don't need to add any code, because when the ID is not 0, it will do the update. So when the ID is 0, it will add. So you can see when it fetches the data, it will update the title ID field, which will have a value that is not 0. So that way, it's not longer going to create a new one, but edit whatever is existing. That's the beauty of writing this code this way. So you can try it out and see how that works out. I'll close this. I'll refresh this, and I'll simply say doctor here. I'll edit, and you can see I have doctor here. And by the way, when you come back to inspect here, and then you pick the hidden, you can see it has now a value of 2. So if I say doctor, let me put doctor in full, then I save, you can see it has saved, and actually now this is doctor, not dr. And you can confirm that from the database as it has actually saved by refreshing this. You can see now it is doctor, and I can change it back to dr. So edit it, call it dr with a dot, save. It has updated. It is now dr with a dot. So I'm now able to create, I'm able to show, and I'm able to edit. For the interest of time, I might not be able to show you how to delete, but when we meet again within the next class, I'll be able to show you how to delete, as we are going to do countries, and we're going to do several other components, so that now it sticks in on how exactly this needs to be achieved. All right? Any question up to that point? You can raise your hand, you can unmute your mic, you can type in the comment box. You can also send what do we call them? You can send an emoji. So I know, or you can raise your hand. So whichever method you want to use to ask a question, just go ahead, but we go one at a time in the event that we have more than one person wanting to ask a question. Any question? I'll go back to the chat so that I can be able to follow up. Any question? Any comment? Well, somebody was typing something in the chat box, so probably, okay, it's not a question. Okay. All right, so if there is no question and there is no comment, I'll take a break at that. I'll share with you the video and the source code of whatever we have done so far, so that now you can go ahead and try and implement this. When we meet again in our next class, I will try and make sure that now we are able to repeat the same process over and over again, so that just it sticks in your memory what exactly needs to be done to be able to achieve the correct operation that you're done. As you can see, it's not really very difficult, but you need to understand some few principles here and there which make it very easy for you to be able to push the data back and forth as far as your user interface is concerned. So this is how we create an actual application. So we started with the database, we went to the backend, which we are using PHP, we created our APIs, we created our controllers. Now we're at the views level and we're able to achieve all these things and tying every node together so that now the entire application works end-to-end. We have a user interface and we have where the data is being stored, and everything works as per our design. So I think I'll take a break at that. When we meet again next time, we'll be able to carry on from that. Have a wonderful afternoon, and let's meet again on Wednesday, hopefully very early in the morning. Okay? Okay, thank you, Benahin. So I'll share the video with the class rep and also the source code. You can try to be able to follow it up and replicate. Of course, if you're following the video, you should be able to just type the code right off the bat because I was doing it step by step. But still, you can refer to the finished product to see exactly where you might have gone wrong if for some reason you will have gone wrong. All right? See you again next time.